Like a lot of you, I watched with bated breath as the events of Operation Sindoor unfolded. And I cheered for our military forces as they destroyed terrorist forward camps. But then Pakistan retaliated, and then we retaliated to that retaliation. And somewhere in the middle of all of this, the news just went haywire. We were exposed to a series of false narratives and fake news, not only from the Pakistani side of things, but also from our own media channels. And we were stuck in this unenviable position in which we had to search for foreign news articles simply to find out what's happening in our own country. Which is why we decided to start the Daily Brew, where we're going to be analyzing the biggest geopolitical events of the world and interpreting what they mean for India, for people like you and me. Why geopolitics? Because it's perhaps the biggest driver of change in this multipolar world we're living in today. And we wanted to make sure that every Indian has access to verified, researched, and unbiased facts about what's happening around them. We're going to be coming out with a new video every week where we'll talk about the biggest events of the period. And if you like our content, I can't believe I'm saying this, but please hit like and subscribe. In a historic first since World War II, Germany has sent a permanent tank brigade to Lithuania. Around 4,800 troops and 200 civilian staff will now be stationed there, as part of NATO's attempts to deter any potential Russian aggression on its eastern border. Germany claims that this is about real deterrence and not just political symbolism. However, many of you will know that Germany is a country that still struggles with its expansionist past and the part it played in World War II. So if we were to send a permanent military force to any Eastern European power is a major surprise. So why is this happening now? Well, with Russia still bogged down in Ukraine, but showing absolutely no signs of backing off, many Eastern European countries are concerned about being next and are demanding greater boots on the ground and greater protection from Western neighbors. But Germany coming to their aid with a permanent military brigade is a significant departure from its post-war European military policy. And also, well, let's be honest, Germany is also doing this to boost its image within NATO. After years of being called out for not spending enough on defense, Germany wants to send a message to the world that it is finally taking collective security seriously. Now, I know what you're thinking. What does Germany putting tanks in Lithuania have to do with India? Quite a bit, surprisingly. For one, whenever tensions spike up between Europe and Russia, oil prices tend to fluctuate. And for a country like India that still imports 80% of its crude oil today, events like these could jack up fuel prices overnight. Second, Germany amping up its defense spending is not an isolated event, but rather the start of a global phenomenon. More and more countries in Eastern Europe, Middle East, Africa, and Southeast Asia are looking to beef up their defense systems. And after the success of Operation Sindoor, they're looking towards Indian defense suppliers to buy their equipment from. And third, if you're in the manufacturing sector, instability in Europe could disrupt supply chains and lead to longer order times. If you're in the IT sector, Indian IT firms could be called upon to enhance cybersecurity in Eastern European institutions. So, that's a positive. This week, US President Donald Trump made headlines, as usual, by extending the tariff deadline on European goods, but with a twist. On 25th May, Trump announced that the proposed 50% tariffs on a wide range of European goods, ranging from automobiles to agricultural produce, be delayed until the 9th of July. The move came after a very nice conversation with European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, who asked for the extension to allow for more time for trade negotiation. However, while this tariff axe has been paused, the US quietly doubled the import duties on certain steel products coming from the EU and other countries. These new duties are set to take effect immediately, and will impact high-grade European industrial steel and specialty alloys, both items heavily in use in the US infrastructure and defense sectors. The EU naturally is not happy about this. They believe that this new unilateral move spits in the face of ongoing efforts to normalize trade. However, it is in line with Trump's known bargaining tactics. Negotiate from a position of pressure, and if the opponent shows any sign of capitulation, negotiate for even more. So, all of this is great, but what does it mean for you? Well, for one, Indian indices like the Nifty and the Sensex rose temporarily on the announcement of this tariff pause. Why? Because it reduced short-term volatility in global trade flows, which, by the way, is a key driver of foreign investment in India. 2. As long as this tariff uncertainty continues, importers in both the US and the EU are going to be looking for alternative suppliers for their products. This opens up a short-term window of opportunity for Indian exporters, particularly those operating in the pharmaceuticals, chemicals, and auto component space. They could, if they move fast enough, potentially fill in the supply gaps left by this disruption to transatlantic trade. And finally, 3. With the US levying European steel, this presents a short-term export advantage to Indian steel manufacturers, such as those operating in Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, and Odisha. They could perhaps amp up their supply of steel to the US, but they also have to be careful. Export too much, and this could invite future scrutiny from Washington depending on trade balances. This week, relations between India and Bangladesh took another sharp turn downward. The Indian government has imposed restrictions on the import of Bangladeshi garments, a sector worth over 6,400 crores annually. The government has cited growing ties between Dhaka and China and Pakistan as a reason for this move. In response, Bangladesh has cancelled a naval defense deal with an Indian shipyard worth 180 crores, and is now looking towards China for future defense contracts. As relations between India and Bangladesh continue to worsen, India is subtly strengthening its position across the vulnerable Northeast. This week saw the Indian Air Force deploy Rafale jets to the Hasimara Air Base in North Bengal, just 50 kilometers away from the Bangladeshi border, along with enhanced radar and surveillance systems. The Indian Army is also strengthening its position across the Siliguri corridor, a narrow 22-kilometer stretch of land connecting the rest of India to its northeastern states. While officially these moves are defensive, but the message is unmistakable. India is fully prepared to counterbalance any attempts by its neighbors to shift regional power dynamics. However, there is a bit of good news on the economic front. India is now pouring capital into the civilian infrastructure in the northeastern states. At the Rising Northeast Investor Summit 2025, Arunachal Pradesh and Assam secured investment commitments of 6,357 crores. Major Indian conglomerates, including Adani and Reliance, are investing in renewable energy, agriculture tech, healthcare, and IT systems. The region, which was long seen as simply a strategic buffer, is now being developed into a domestic growth hub. Now, it should come as no surprise that these developments have a very real impact on us as Indians. For one, the new investments may bring much needed roads, hospitals, internet connectivity, and jobs to the Northeast. This may open up increased opportunities for entrepreneurs, professionals, and skilled laborers from across India to work in the region. However, with security tensions and defense deployments rising, we can expect tighter enforcement of migration rules in border states. Citizens in these regions may have to produce stronger documentation for land, ID, and citizenship over the coming months. The deployment of Rafale jets and mobile artillery in the Northeast has improved India's rapid response capabilities, not just towards Bangladesh-related contingencies, but also as a deterrent to China's actions in Arunachal Pradesh. Overall, India's defensive posture has been significantly improved. And finally, restrictions on the import of Bangladeshi garments may result in a boost to Indian textile hubs, particularly Surat, Tirupur, and Ludhiana. Consumers may see a shift towards Make in India garments, and producers may see a short-term boost to orders. This week, South Korea witnessed a pivotal presidential election. The first, in fact, since the impeachment of former President Yoon Suk-yeol, after he declared a state of martial law in the country. The Democratic Party candidate, Lee Jae-myung, has emerged as a clear winner of the election. He's a seasoned politician with progressive credentials and a desire for South Korea to maintain strategic autonomy when it comes to foreign policy. You see, Lee's campaign has advocated for a balanced approach to international relations. He's emphasized the need for continued cooperation with the US and Japan, but also wants to engage diplomatically with North Korea and improve ties with China. On the domestic front, Lee has pledged to bolster South Korea's technological self-reliance, particularly in the electric vehicle and semiconductor spaces, both of which are critical to the global supply chain. Lee Jae-myung's pro-industrial policies are expected to give a boost to sectors like EV batteries, semiconductors, and robotics, all of which Indian firms are eager to participate in. So India may benefit from joint R&D programs, component manufacturing deals, and tech partnerships. However, India must still keep a close watch on these developments. If South Korea leans too far into China's orbit, it could undercut India's position in the Indo-Pacific. Korea could reduce its support for Western-led naval exercises and defense forums, in which India is a key participant. It could also reduce its support for free navigation through contested waters like the South China Sea, through which a major part of India's trade passes. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, or OPEC+, announced a production increase to 411,000 barrels per day for July 2025. The move is part of the group's ongoing efforts to regain its market share and to punish its overproducing members. The production hike could bring down global oil prices by up to 10% and bring down price per barrel to its lowest level since 2021. The increase in production is a part of the group's phased reversal of the voluntary output cuts made in January 2024 to stabilize oil prices. As a majorly oil importing nation, these developments are quite positive for us. For one, a potential drop in global oil prices will bring down the cost of fuel in India. This will ease inflationary pressure and potentially also reduce your petrol and diesel expenses for your vehicle. 2. A lower oil import bill will improve India's trade deficit, thus strengthening the rupee and also making foreign travel and foreign imports cheaper for you. 3. Cheaper energy costs may boost industrial production and may invite greater foreign investment in energy-intensive sectors.